Welcome everyone, Costin here with a discussion about min-maxing in Wrath of the Lich King Classic and why it's going to matter. Whenever I make a video talking about raid compositions, class tier lists, which class you should pick, which class you shouldn't pick, which class is good, which class isn't good, there's a number of people that come on those videos and say, oh, it doesn't matter, you could do the content without any talent points or no gear. Those kind of comments do happen quite a bit. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to put this issue to rest. I do have the tools as a YouTuber. I'm going to make a poll. So I made a poll. As I'm recording this particular poll has just shy of 800 votes. It certainly will have over 800 votes by the time it's uploaded. Maybe even close to 1,000 or over 1,000 by the time you're watching this. And in this poll, this is how people answered to the question, will min-maxing matter to the player base in Wrath of the Lich King Classic? I'm not saying, I didn't ask if min-maxing is going to be necessary to beat the content, but whether or not it will matter to the player base, to the people. And of the people I answered, 75% said yes, as I'm recording this, 9% said no, 16% said to a degree. So that's how people feel about it. And although these numbers likely will change by the time this video is uploaded, they won't change by a significant amount. I'm fairly confident that the percentages are not going to shift that much. Maybe going lower towards 70%, maybe going higher towards closer to 80%, but anywhere between 70 to 80% of people say it does matter. And there's also a comment from a certain Alex Fisher who says this: I think with all the modern tools GMs, raid leads have now to analyze their raiders' gameplay or even just self-assessing logs, min-maxing is just part of the game. Especially as we move into an expansion with heroic level raiding. People will be looking at the top guild logs more than ever to figure out how to squeeze out a little more DPS in the fights giving them trouble. And there are going to be fights giving people trouble. But how did we get into a situation where min-maxing became a core part of the game? Because it absolutely is, be it in retail or in Classic. In Classic, you had hardcore guilds, normal guilds, casual guilds, and even pugs stacking the hell out of warriors. In TBC, you have the situation with hunters, warlocks, and shamans. In Wrath, you're going to have the situation with mages, warlocks, and DKs. That's going to be the class stacking that's going to happen in Wrath of the Lich King. But how did we get to this stage in the game? Because it happens in retail as well. As someone who played on retail in Shadowlands, when it came out, it was particularly frustrating trying to find a group as a prop paladin because no one wanted one for a Mythic Plus, because it was the age of the Demon Hunters and OP tank class. And it was. Blizzard nerfed it, by the way, by quite a substantial amount, but the damage had been done. But how did we get to this situation of min-maxing? Well, I think it really started with Sunwell Plateau. Let me explain. Before the release of Sunwell Plateau in retail Burning Crusade, and this is why Sunwell Plateau has such an insidious legacy, because a lot of the issues that the game has in terms of min-maxing and other areas come from Sunwell Plateau. With Sunwell Plateau, Blizzard changed the way the game was played. Before Sunwell Plateau had been released, if you raided consistently for 4 to maybe even 6 days a week, I personally did an average of 5 in Burning Crusade on retail and played from beginning to end. If you played consistently every week, you had a very high chance of beating the content in a pretty average guild. I mean, I killed Illidan with a dagger rogue and a mace rogue and plenty of other suboptimal specs and classes, and certainly a suboptimal raid composition back in the days of Burning Crusade on retail, let alone killing Vash and Kael'thas and all that. So it's certainly possible. But then Sunwell Plateau comes along, and if you did min-max your specs, your classes, your raid comp, you just weren't going to beat the content. You would get stuck on Brutalis, then get stuck on Felmis, then Twins, and even if you were able to kill Kaligos, Brutalis, Felmis, and Twins, you very well would get stuck on Muru if you didn't have 4 or 5 warlocks, 4 or 5 shamans, 1 or 2 priests, a prop paladin, and so on, because the boss fight was so difficult. So in order to beat the most relevant content in the game, Moro, Kil'jaeden, you needed to stack the hell out of your raid comp. And you also needed and this is the crazy part, you also needed pretty much everyone to use leatherworking for Drums of Battle for the extra DPS bonus they gave you. Before this point, it had never really been necessary. Even when we're thinking about Nax in vanilla, sure, people did do crazy things like flasking an entire raid. I believe Nylum did that for Kafun, flasking an entire raid, all that kind of stuff. People were using crazy things back in the days, but Sunwell Plateau took things to a completely different level. And it never went away, because after the release of Sunwell Plateau, we got Wrath of the Lich King. And Wrath of the Lich King might be considered a very easy expansion. Certainly the 5 bans in Axe 2.0, many of the normal bosses are very easy. But you do have hard mode raiding and you do have heroic raiding. And even in tier 7, you do have a pretty challenging boss from the beginning, which can be made far easier if you classic. And I'm talking obviously about Sarfarian free drakes. The issue here wasn't on 25 men. The issue here was on 10 men when the game originally launched. But you can make your life much easier even in 25 men if you min-max your DPS. You just pull a boss, you zerg him down before the drakes enter the fight, and you can avoid all of the mechanics, the lava walls, the adds, the small drakes, the free dragons, all that kind of stuff. Much of it can wipe you, by the way, if you have enough DPS. So that's an example where min-maxing can really help you out in a major way. But that's just the beginning, and tier 7 is certainly the easiest tier in Wrath of the Lich King overall. But then comes Ulduar. Ulduar with its many bosses that have hard modes that are very melee unfriendly. You have Vezax, for instance. Vezax who spawns and who you have to wait a certain period of time until he spawns an ad that starts doing progressively more and more and more AoE damage that will wipe the raid. And Vezax, where casters get an enormous DPS benefit as opposed to melee. If you could do this fight without any melee, or with just 1 or 2 for the sake of interrupts, that would be ideal. You do need interrupts, and melee are really good in that respect. But stacking casters in this particular boss fight, which isn't the most difficult in the raid, by the way, is very welcome. But then you have things like Forum. Again, stacking melee is a bad idea because you need people to spread around, or else they're going to take a significant amount of damage. Then you have Firefighter, which is the best example. There are several difficult mechanics, even on normal, that make life a miserable hell for melee DPSers, so you want to stack as much ranged as possible. And that's the normal fight, let alone hard mode, where the whole room is on fire. You have the element of fire, adding a level of complexity to the fight, again screwing over melee. Ulduar is really difficult, given the mechanics that are available there. Sure, in Classic, you can expect people to clear a lot of these hard modes within a couple of days of Ulduar coming out, or maybe within a week, because I'm sure some top guilds will race to get the Realm First achievement and not care about doing the hard modes, and then after that week, people will care about doing the hard modes. But for a lot of guilds, the idea that you're just going to clear Ulduar with the suboptimal comp, playing like crap, that's not going to hold up to the reality of this raid. Even if Blizzard doesn't tune everything, even if Blizzard has it in the easiest state, there are still plenty of mechanics that can and will wipe groups. You have 1 hour to do Algalon as an example, after which you have to come back next week, and you only get 1 hour each week. Then there's Trial of the Grand Crusader. Now, Trial of the Grand Crusader, pretty easy raid, right? But if you want to get the very best loot available and get the achievements, you need to kill the boss with 50 tries left. Basically, you need to kill a Nubarak on heroic without wiping once. And that's how you get the very, very best loot in this particular tier. Now, everyone cares about it, but even a Nubarak, even if you discount that and you're just trying to do boss normally on heroic, Nubarak has certain mechanics that you have to take into consideration. He heals based on how much health you have. So the best way of doing the fight is to let most of the raid outside of the tanks drop to very low HP. But on top of that, he also has adds that spawn. Adds that will do significantly more damage if they're in close proximity to one another. Or they'll attack a lot faster. How do you deal with that? Well, you get a paladin or warrior and a warrior, or just one paladin or one warrior or 2 warriors, and you get as much block rating gear as possible, so they have so that every hit is a miss, dodge, parry. Basically, passive crush cap. It is doable with a combination of Nax and World War gear. It is absolutely doable to get it, but it requires very specific gearing, and only paladins and warriors can pull it off. And you also need a pretty decent amount of block value. But it means that when those ads spawn, you can pick them all up and you take no damage from them, and then you can bring them all together, bring them down quickly, focus on the boss. That's a new Barak. You, by the way, get quite a few ads, so you actually do need to kill them quickly before another set of ads spawn and wipe your raid. If you're taking regular damage, you won't last long against these ads. And you also have the healing on the boss. And TO's GC is not a difficult raid. World War is more difficult. And then there's Icecrown Citadel, a raid that was designed around people having a buff that was buffing their HP, their damage, and so on. A raid that no guild in the world, even the very best guilds in the world, were able to clear the first time around without at least a 5% buff. A buff that goes all the way up to 30%. Let's be clear on that. Now sure, with plenty of gear, with good comps, etc., Paragon and other guilds were able to do it without the buff, but you can expect Icecrown Citadel to be quite difficult, especially when you're thinking about Lich King, Sindragosa, and Putricide when it originally comes out. The damage is very high. The DPS requirements are also pretty high. And that's what you can expect in Wrath of the Lich King. But the bigger point, really, beyond the difficulty of the content, and it can be all over the place, though I would like to remind people that plenty of guilds did not kill Vash or Kel'Thas, either of them, or they only killed one of them. I would like to remind people that aspect, but beyond that, the player base cares about this. Why do they care about this? Well, it goes back to one of the points I made. We used to raid more days a week. 4, 5, 6 were the norm. I'd say 4 to 5 were the normal raiding days. Nowadays, people want to be done in 1-2 days with raiding in Classic or in WoW in general. That's the norm in this day and age. That's what people want. That's what they want to achieve. If they have to raid 3 days a week, quite a few people can make that. Work, real life, whatever. They have commitments in real life. The player base has certainly changed. So something has to give in order to make that possible. And what's that something? That something is min-maxing the raid in order to achieve that level of success. Because if you want to beat the content in 2 raiding days and you want to do Old War hard modes or Icecrown Citadel heroics or even Trial of the Grand Crusader with 50 tries left, you need to do something. Something needs to give. And that something is optimizing your raid comp, optimizing your DPS, your healing, and your tanking, bringing in the classes that give you the most benefits, and that's the way you're going to do the content in a quick and efficient manner, and where you can clear something like World War or Icecrown Citadel, which by the way have quite a few bosses, within 1 or 2 raid days, or at least do progression on these bosses. And this is going to continue with, say, Cataclysm Classic, all the way up to retail. Because that's how the game is in this day and age. Costin here, signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, enable notifications. If you do enjoy my content, hop on the Discord. That's where I post my videos. That's so you can keep track of them better. And consider donating via PayPal or Patreon. I could certainly use your support. Stay tuned for more, everyone.